Star Wars Episode VIII The Last Jedi is finally in theaters, and I finally get to review this. I've been waiting for this movie all year. Hell, just because I loved the character of Rey, right after the movie got out, I bought the Skywalker family lightsaber, which is technically her lightsaber now. I'm pretty sure they're calling it Rey's lightsaber now, but that's beside the point. This was, hold on. This was one of my this was my most anticipated movie this year, and to prepare for it, I reviewed every single Star Wars movie, and I even reviewed the Clone Wars movie and the Clone Wars TV show, and because I wanted to give myself a little bit more to do, I actually did a review on every single Rian Johnson film that he directed before directing Last Jedi, and if you guys are curious about any of those reviews, I will actually leave a link in the description below. But with all of my excitement for, you know, the movie coming, how is the film? Well, let's break it down bit by bit, or at least as much as I can without any spoilers. And actually, speaking of which, if you guys would like me to do a spoiler review, I'm actually thinking of doing my very first spoiler review for this one. What I'm going to do is, in the next week, I'm going to rewatch it at least one more time. And then around Friday next week, I will actually come out with a spoiler review just so I can talk about everything because, oh my god, there is so much shit that happens in this movie that I can't talk about right now, and I really want to. But anyway, back to the non-spoiler part. So let's start with the performances, and I will also make a minor comment on every character as a whole a little bit later, but first off, Daisy Ridley continues to excel as Rey and just gives a wonderful performance. John Boyega gives another awesome performance as Finn, the ex-stormtrooper. Oscar Isaac as Poe gets a lot more screen time, and there were points where he was actually my favorite character in the entire movie, but mostly it bounced back and forth between him and Rey. Adam Driver gives another great performance as Kylo Ren, and if you're one of those people who legitimately did not enjoy his character in The Force Awakens, that's fine. I kind of understand where you're going. It's just that it wasn't my opinion. You may actually enjoy his character a lot more in this movie. Like I said, I don't know. Some of you may look at it and think, yeah, he's still a little whiny bitch or something, but, you know, whatever. With Mark Hamill, I think I was most worried about his performance because while he's been shining over the past couple of decades as a voice actor, I don't think he's really done much live-action stuff, and after all, we only got a little look of him when The Force Awakens came out before we were left with this cliffhanger that was literal and figurative. But Hamill shines as Luke Skywalker and gives, in my opinion, his best performance as the legendary Jedi Master. Now, let's talk about Carrie Fisher. I know I'm gonna be rambling, so just a bit of a warning. As you all know, she tragically passed away last year, just a couple of days after Christmas, and her death was one of the very few celebrity deaths that actually adversely affected me. I hadn't really ever needed to cry whenever I heard about a celebrity dying, but with Carrie Fisher and what she did for the Princess Leia character and the fact that I had grown up with her, and her character and her were so integral to my childhood that I felt like I had lost a family member. So because of that, I did actually cry. I cried for at least an hour before I had to go to work later that day. So, you know, it was that and wipe off the tears off my face because I gotta look tough at work because I'm surrounded by men and stuff. And when she does appear in the film, I could actually feel the entire theater room that I was in feel just heavy. It was a lot of mixed feelings. All of us were really happy to see her, but a lot of us, I could feel, were trying their damnedest not to cry because we just realized, hey, this happened a while ago, she's no longer with us. But as for her last performance as Princess Leia, she truly saved the best performance for her last. She was amazing in The Last Jedi, and just watching her give that performance helped keep me from actually breaking down during the movie and from getting overly sentimental. But then, and I don't believe that this is a spoiler, so just in case you do, go ahead and mute the volume for like a few seconds, but hopefully you'll know when to come back in. But in the end credits, after a bit, they actually put up the words, in in memory of our beloved princess, Carrie Fisher, and I'm sorry, give me a second. Sorry about that. But yeah, it basically just said, in loving memory of our beloved princess, Carrie Fisher, and I was basically like this. I was a heaping mess because, other than when I heard the news that she had left us, I hadn't cried since then, so just, I wanted to save it just for the movie, just in case I needed to, and I was so overwhelmed by that part, because by the end, she had done such a good job, I was able to forget that she had left us, and it was great to see her in the film, and I know that, like most of you watching this, who grew up with her, I'm really gonna miss Carrie. Okay, I gotta get this over with. I can't just be a heaping mess. I'm sorry about that. As far as all the other actors, they do a really good job. I mean, Domhnall Gleeson as Hux, Laura Dern as Vice Admiral Holdo, and oh my god, Andy Serkis, who is a god to me, is amazing as Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, as for all the major characters, as I said, I was going to put a little bit of time after talking about the performances to where I would just give a brief overview on how I felt about each character. Rian Johnson has found a way to take all of these characters, even our two beloved classic trilogy characters, and takes them in directions and to places that you wouldn't necessarily predict or think about or just expect them to do. And they don't just do this with the characters, they do this with the film and the story. The film takes a lot of risks, whether it's with the character development or the plot points, and in my opinion, they all pay off in the end, especially considering what twists and turns they take us all through when you're going through the movie. And speaking of which, go see the movie before anybody online ruins any twists or any reveals for you, because you deserve to discover them for yourself. There is nothing like going into a movie as blind as possible and just having things revealed to you, and oh my god, there were a couple of times in this movie where I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Rian Johnson has also done something that I don't think has been done in the last 2 Star Wars films, or at least any of the films ever since the Disney acquisition, and that was making a film that feels like Star Wars, but also being able to put his unique voice and humor into it, which, by the way, the film is a lot funnier than I think a lot of us were expecting, and also, he maintains that great eye of filmmaking that he has, and it's because this does feel like a Rian Johnson film as well, not just a Star Wars film. I felt a lot of the things that I felt whenever I was watching, like Brothers Bloom, Brick, or Looper, and Looper was the first movie that I ever saw from him, and it was the movie that made me fall in love with his filmmaking style. And, you know, I'm just a huge fan of the guy. He takes his time with his stories, carefully peppering smaller character moments within the grander scheme of things. And with The Last Jedi, even at 2.5 hours long, in my opinion, there isn't one single minute, one single second that is wasted. Now, one thing that I was worried about, it was something that JJ had done in The Force Awakens and Gareth Edwards had done, although I would say Gareth Edwards was a lot worse with it. But I was worried that Johnson was going to be putting a shit ton of Easter eggs just peppered throughout, harkening back to the previous movies that don't necessarily serve the story. Excuse me. Instead, we get minor nods and winks. Not really, okay, like a couple of Easter eggs, but they're more, they're not like out in front of your face. They're more like subtle in the background. And whenever there is any big callback, it's usually used to serve the betterment of the story. Hell, even the editing in certain scenes actually paid homage to a few original trilogy moments. And they really worked. It all felt really natural the way that this film was edited. The visuals are outstanding, definitely the best in the Star Wars universe so far, especially with the space battles. And, okay, one of the issues that I had with The Force Awakens was how Snoke looked. You looked at Snoke in The Force Awakens, and you could tell that's a CGI character. He just didn't feel real. But here, in The Last Jedi, the realism that I felt when I was looking at it was similar to whenever I was watching Andy Serkis play Caesar in the Planet of the Apes trilogy. And I actually had to pinch myself a few times to remind myself, this isn't real. This is a character that was made from computer, or for the most part. And it was really hard because even something as small as his eye movement and his mouth movement looked hyper-realistic. I did not get one itty-bitty sense of Uncanny Valley whenever I looked at him. The cinematography in this film is definitely some of the best in the saga, and you could actually, just watching it, you could see Johnson's love for samurai films, anime, war films, and the way that he filmed any scene that was involving lightsabers, you really get that feeling that a Jedi is similar to a samurai. And there were a couple of those scenes with how they were choreographed and shot with the camera. It actually made me believe that he has given us some of the best fight scenes in Star Wars. Hell, not even just that. I'm willing to say that he has given us some of the most iconic shots in Star Wars saga. I do actually want to put a bit of time aside to talk about the Porgs. There seems to have been a divide, just anywhere online, where there's like one side where they're like, oh my god, the Porgs are the most adorable thing ever, and then everybody else is like, they're the next Jar Jar, they look really stupid, they're just gonna be put in as a way to sell toys to people, and they're not gonna really be useful, or, you know, just a lot of negative stuff. I will go ahead and tell you, the Porgs are awesome. I mean, they are so adorable and funny, and they don't overdo them. They put them in just enough of the movie to where you end up loving them. And actually, as soon as I get the chance, I'm gonna buy myself a frickin' stuffed Porg. Now let's talk about the music, because with the most recent Star Wars film, Rogue One, I think it had the worst Star Wars score ever. But that wasn't necessarily the composer's fault, because some things happened in post-production and they had to switch composers, and the new composer only had like a couple of months to actually compose a score, and doing a really good score in that amount of time is probably near impossible. I know it was for him. He said that it was a really difficult process just trying to compose something for the movie. So I don't hold that against him, but we have John Williams back as the composer for this, as he has said that at least as long as there are still saga films, he will come back, and as long as he can still somehow put the Rey theme song somewhere in the movie, he will come back. And oh my god, this was a fantastic score. Like, I loved the score from Force Awakens. I think I loved the score for The Last Jedi even better, because it's just a perfect balance of old versus new. He just knew when to play up the older scores, but then also knew when to put in the newer stuff. And once again, because of this, the music it stands out as its own character in a Star Wars film, and all is now good in the world. Guys, in the end, I loved this movie. I know certain people out there won't agree with me. I know me and Mallory got into kind of a debate earlier before I started making the video, where she was talking about plot points that didn't really interest her. She said that the new casino planet, Canto Bight, she wasn't really a fan of, and I understand. Look, if there are parts of the film that you don't like the stuff that I listed, I can understand that. But for me personally, everything worked. It really did. And I wish I could talk more about stuff, but like I said, it would get into spoiler territory, and I don't want to do that in this video. I want to be able to give like my opinion to somebody who hasn't seen the movie and really wants to, without giving anything away, really. But, okay, when the credits started rolling, I just sat in the theater with my mouth hanging open, just watching them list off all of the actors that were playing, and I was crying. I was crying tears of joy because I thought that I had seen something really beautiful. Or at least, it was tears of joy until I saw that dedication to Carrie Fisher, and then I was just really sad throughout. I almost started crying in the car because I started thinking about it, but then I was just telling myself, no, you don't deserve to cry right now. You're gonna go home, and you're gonna cry like a man. I don't know why I just said that. Anyway, I rambled. This is my favorite Star Wars film since Empire, and I am going to give this 5 reels, as well as announce that, what was it? I think it was, Force Awakens? Yeah, in my Force Awakens review, I believe I said at the end, what the order of least to favorite Star Wars movie is. I am going to say right now, Last Jedi is definitely in my top 3. I don't know where I'm gonna place it, but I'll need to rewatch the movie a couple of times at least before I decide where it's gonna go. And hey, will it surpass Empire for me? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. It really helps out the channel when I get a little bit more support, and I really appreciate any support that you guys can give me. And be sure to look out for more of my reviews that are coming up. I'm coming out with a few more Christmas reviews, and I'm hoping to get out reviews of some newer movies like The Greatest Showman or the Jumanji sequel. I hope to get those out really soon. Well, anyway, guys, as I said, that'll do it for me today. Farewell until the next video.